So when I was 7 or 8 years old, I was a singer. I was a little singer. So 7, 8 years old, I was in front of my peers, my class, my school, and sang Barry Manilow's I Write the Songs. What a beautiful song. I write the songs that make the whole world sing. I write the songs of love and special things. What a beautiful song. Just a few years later, when I started getting called a faggot and a fairy in 6th grade, I stopped singing publicly. I stopped putting myself out there because it felt safer as a boy to not go there anymore, to not share that part of myself anymore. And it took me about 30 years to get that part of myself back. So there's a cost to this old paradigm. That's part of my personal cost in this old paradigm. A few years ago, I wrote a piece called The New Macho that is like a manifesto. It's a little poem that I wrote, that I put out there. It's been shared a lot now. The first line of The New Macho is, he cleans up after himself. And I'm not talking about housework per se, although we've already heard that sharing in that part of being a man, sharing in the family, sharing in the housework is part of developing this gender equity, gender equality that we want. So I get to play at that. But what I'm talking about in The New Macho is about sharing responsibility for cleaning up this gender system that we participate in as men, in policing each other to not go outside of that man box. It's about cleaning up the hundreds of years. I heard somebody else say something about, we're not all to blame and we are all responsible for cleaning that up. So when I talked about The New Macho, I'm talking about this new paradigm of masculinity that we're referring to. It's a shift, it's an evolution. It's reclaiming some things that have been off limits to men. We are taught and we teach each other and we police each other. Don't be sensitive, all of those things that we saw. Put on the mask and keep the mask on because it's dangerous to take the mask off. So in this new paradigm of masculinity, we are moving out of that, away from that. We are reclaiming parts of ourselves and we are encouraging and empowering other people to reclaim those parts of themselves. So in the Mankind Project, and in this conference, this is about that invitation to create more empowered workplaces for women, more empowered workplaces for people of color, more empowered workplaces for ourselves as men when we break out of that man box. And in the Mankind Project, we ask men through training programs and men's groups to challenge themselves and lean into living fully present human emotional lives. And that's a difficult ask for a lot of men. That was a difficult ask for me. It was hard for me to do that. It was hard for me to break out of that box. So through doing that, we give men access to parts of themselves that they may have locked away years and years ago. And then we start to give them tools to move through the world with this access to parts of themselves that they may have locked away. Tools for listening. Tools for processing hard emotions, tools for working with conflict in their worlds. So we help men do that. Work, access, and tools. One of the questions that we ask a lot in the Mankind Project is, what's at risk to do this work? What's at risk to take this chance of stepping out of this old paradigm and into a new paradigm, stepping into a new way of being a man in the world. And so for men, it costs us, and I'll just read my little list. So it costs us like 7 years. We die. We die earlier. Somebody else said 15 years. We die younger. Depression, alcoholism, domestic violence. It costs us. And it costs our society through the burden that we outsource because we refuse to own responsibility for our own emotional lives. We outsource and put all of that burden onto the women and other people in our lives. I'm not going to take responsibility for this. You have to take responsibility for this. You have to take responsibility for all the soft stuff in the world when men are stuck in the old paradigm. So we ask men to take responsibility for that. And it costs our businesses and teams. So Google, I heard this study mentioned earlier, Google did a 2-year study with 180 teams, 200 interviews to figure out what was the difference, what makes a really effective team. And the thing that they came back to as the number one thing that would show a team's effectiveness was about how much psychological safety they created. And then underneath that, if they got that, then the other 4 things were dependability, structure and clarity, meaning, and impact of the teams. So with those 4 things, you can do pretty well. Add psychological safety to that, and your team's success, how your teams thrive, elevates. So, and for a lot of men, what does that even mean? Creating psychological safety, we don't even feel safe in our own bodies much of the time. How can we create safety around us? And in the Mankind Project, we often start with that self-empathy. Tell me about your deepest pain. What are you afraid of? Was another question that I heard in the room earlier. So where do men go in our culture to learn how to develop this?